owners, Kevin Ward here at kevinnow.com. One of the questions I had, and actually I had two agents ask me this question this week, is they are talking to for sale by owners, and they've got an appointment with a for sale by owner to go and preview their home or to go see the house and so forth. And so the question is, it's not actually a listing appointment. How do you approach a preview appointment, or where you're going to see a for sale by owner and see the house and so forth? So I want to just share with you several thoughts on that, about what it takes to, or what's the best approach in talking to a for sale by owner. And the first thing is to respect their perspective. And by that I simply mean never make a for sale by owner stupid or wrong or inferior because they're trying to sell the house themselves. Because one of the things, for example, that you ask them is, so what methods are you using to market your home? And they're going to tell you, whatever. They got a sign in the yard, they've got it on Craigslist, they may have advertised it on a website, they may have run it in a local newspaper, or whatever they did. Whatever they're doing to market the home, excellent, good for you. You affirm what they're doing. Great, so you got it on Craigslist, you got the sign in the yard, you do it open houses, good for you. I've repeated and I've affirmed what they're doing, because to them, that makes totally perfect sense that they would do it that way. So one is you've got to create agreement with them so that they don't see you as it's you against them. They want to see it that it's you and them, that I'm here to help you. And that's the approach that I teach is that when you first talk to a for sale by owner, hey, I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area, and I was just wondering, how can I help you? Is that I'm here to help you. And I'm not here to get your listing. I'm not here to, charge you money. I'm here to help you get the property sold. So that's the first thing, is you want to identify with them, don't make them wrong, see it from their perspective and respect that perspective. The second thing that you want to do is never buy into their apparent lack of motivation. Don't buy into their story. When they tell you, well, if I don't sell the house, who cares? I'm testing it out, doesn't really matter, I'm in no hurry. Have you ever had that happen, or somebody tell you that and you believed them, and then you called back 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later only to find out that the very next week they listed with an agent? Don't you hate it when that happens? Well, what happened? They had more motivation than they let on. Now, this doesn't always happen, but you have to assume that when they tell you, well, you know what, we're going to at least try it ourselves for a couple of months, and we're in no hurry, and we blah, 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 and they're downplaying their motivation. What they're doing is that's their script. They're using that as a way to keep you from trying to get them to list the property because they don't want the pressure. And so they just say, you know what, we're not doing anything right now. It keeps them in control. And if you believe them and you buy into that, then you're never going to know if that's the reality or not until it's too late. So you want to make sure you're asking questions to identify, obviously the third most important key in working with for sale by owners and talking to them is dig in to find their real motivation. What is their motivation for selling this property? Now that's true with any seller, that the most important key for anybody before they'll list a house is what is their motivation. Because if they're not motivated, they're either not going to list it or they're not going to be realistic in when they list it about what it's going to take to actually get the property sold. So they'll overprice it, or they'll be demanding about all kinds of marketing that doesn't help. So I've got to ask questions about motivation just to identify what their position is and so forth. Now let's say you've talked to them on the phone and they say, yeah, come on over and see the property. We're not listing it. We're just, but we'll, if you bring us a buyer, we'll pay you a commission. So here's another tip. One is never fall into the trap of saying, hey, if I have a buyer, will you pay me a commission? Or saying, well, great, if I have a buyer, I'll bring them over. And see, whenever you do that, and it's a lot of people will teach you to do that. It's like you call them and say, hey, I'm surveying for sale by owners in the area, and I want to know if I bring over a buyer, will you pay a commission? Well, of course. I mean, they'll all do that. I mean, virtually, not always, but virtually all of them will say, yeah, you bring me a buyer and I'll pay you a commission. And my question is, why in the world would I approach a for sale by owner that way? Because here's what I just did. What I just told them was, Mr. For sale by owner, your approach works perfectly. And I'm willing to cooperate with your approach, and that is that if I have a buyer for your house, I'm going to magically remember your house and find your house and find you, and I'm going to bring my buyer to see your house. You see, what you do is whenever you go with this impression of, hey, if I have a buyer, I'll bring them. If you ever say that, or if they say, well, I'm not going to work with an agent. Well, if I brought you a buyer, would you pay a commission? Well, yeah. Well, what you just told them is you don't need to hire an agent to sell your home. All you need to do is let all the agents know that call that when they have a buyer, all they got to do is bring them and they'll get taken care of. They'll get paid a commission. See, here's the reason you should never say that. That's not the way it works. Okay, the reality is that's not how for sale by owners sell. And that's not how real estate agents find properties for their buyers. So two things happen. One is I'm misinforming the for sale by owner that their approach works, their strategy works. And that is that, hey, whenever if they let other agents know they're willing to work with an agent, whenever an agent has a buyer, they're going to find Mr. For Sale by Owner. The reality is that's not how we find buyers, right? Or find listings, right? If you have a buyer, think about it. You're an agent, you have a buyer. How do you look for properties for that buyer? You get on the MLS and you look and see what's available. Okay, you don't go out scrounging around looking for sale by owners. If you had to and there's no inventory and you find it for sale by owner, okay, we'll try to match them up. But every real estate agent that's been in the business or ever tried to sell a for sale by owner's listing without being listed is that chances are working with a for sale by owner is much more difficult than if you are working with them through another agent. And it just doesn't work that way. When we have motivated, qualified buyers, we go on the MLS, and that's what we would prefer. Every real estate agent would prefer to show them a property because you're going to get paid a commission. There's professional standards of our profession that are going to happen throughout the listing and selling process. When you're working with a for sale by owner, it's anybody's game, and you're going to have to fight for a commission, or it's always an uncertainty. You're going to run into more problems because you got a for sale by owner, a homeowner trying to represent themselves. You've heard in law, they teach the truth. Only a fool represents himself, right? So the fact is it doesn't work that way for sale by owners if they want agents to bring a listing. So why would you play into that game? Because what you're just telling them is, don't list with me. I have a buyer, I'll bring them. So whenever they say, well, do you have a buyer? Bring it. Here's the way you respond to that. Great. So if an agent brings a buyer, you are willing to pay a commission. Excellent. Well, do you have a buyer for me? You know what? That's a great question, Mr. Seller, and I'm not calling you because I have a specific buyer for your house. The reason I'm calling is because I help people like yourself sell their home for top dollar in the best time possible with the least amount of hassle. And then I'm going to go into another question. So if you sell this house, where are you going next? I'm going to now go into motivation. So whenever you go to a for sale by owner, let's say you talk to them on the phone, they say, yeah, come over and see the house. I'm willing to work with agents to bring a buyer. Great. Okay, good. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to see the house. What do I do? Well, one, don't try to list the property. That's what we call a bait and switch, okay? And sellers feel tricked if they think you're coming to preview the property for a buyer, or they think you're coming just to see the house so you can know what's on the market, or just to meet them, whatever. Don't try to turn and switch and list the property. Now, a lot of agents will try to do that. The problem is, one, a lot of times they're going to feel like you came in with false pretense. You came in there to preview it, and now you're trying to get me to sign a listing agreement? Come on. And so you actually hurt yourself because you create distrust. Now, would you agree that trust is pretty important between you and your clients, you and your sellers? Absolutely. So what you want to start out is by being honest with them. And that's why I don't say, hey, if I bring you a buyer, or I may have a buyer for your house, so I'm going to come see it. Okay. Now, if you have a buyer for their house, then you can say that. But here's the problem. What if the house doesn't work for your buyer? Well, now, what are you going to tell them? Well, it didn't work for my buyer, so now list with me. Okay, well, I don't want to list with you. I'm just going to do what we just did, and that is whenever an agent has a buyer, I'll just tell them to bring them on over. Okay, and so you're going to run into that. And so you've got to be careful and realize the mindset that they have is, if you're telling them you'll bring buyers, they don't think they need you. When the reality is, they need you a lot. Why? Because they are handling a several $100,000 or sometimes over $1 million asset transaction of that, and they're trying to do it themselves. They're trying to do it without professional representation. Guys, when you're selling a $1.2 million house or a $200,000 house, it doesn't matter. You're handling a huge financial transaction. You need professional representation. That's why real estate professionals are still needed, and that's why still over 90% of real estate for sale by owners that actually end up selling actually end up listing and selling their home with a real estate professional. Now, you go to the house, you're going out to preview it or to meet them or whatever. You haven't gone out there to list it. So what do? Well, Get out there, meet them, be excited about their house, and identify their motivation, and then ask for an appointment. Now here's how that plays out. When I get there, I'm just like, hey, thanks again for having me on. I'm excited about taking a look at your house. And and then as I go through the house, take what I use as a seller information sheet. And it's just a lead sheet, and I'm just taking notes on the property. I ask them if they have a flyer on the property, which they probably do, and I get a copy of the flyer, and so I'm taking notes on it. But I'm not asking them questions about the property. Because what matters when it comes to selling a house? The property or the seller's motivation? And the reality is, it's the seller's motivation. So I don't ask questions about the property. What I'm doing is, great. So when the house sells, and you said you guys are moving to San Diego, that's exciting. So how soon are you wanting to be there? What's taking you to San Diego? Oh, that's exciting. And so I'm just talking to them, and I'm getting excited about what they're excited about. I'm focusing on what's important to them. So I'm curious, now you guys had decided to put it on the market for yourself. Why did you decide to just try to sell it yourself rather than list with a professional real estate agent? Well, we want to save the commission. Okay, great. So obviously you just want to save the commission. So it's just basically just dollars and cents, right? That reasoning totally makes sense. And tell them that. Just economics, right? It just makes sense. So now, and here's the close. And this is over the phone or at the house. And it's the two-step, if you want to call it that. I'm at the house now. I'm talking to them. I'm not saying, hey, so, why don't we get together and list the house with me? Always speak in terms of their interest and their perspective. What do they want? They want to net the most money in their pocket. So I find out their motivation, that they're realistically motivated to sell their house. They have a reason to sell it. And then I ask a very simple question. And it's almost, again, it's the Columbo technique of, so let me just ask this. If I could help you get the home sold faster, if that's a motivation issue for them, get the home sold faster for you and get you to San Diego sooner rather than later, and most importantly, if I could help you net the money you want to make in your pocket, would you consider going ahead and interviewing me now? And that's the line, guys. Right there is the magic. Well, how are you going to do that? I mean, after all the commissions and everything, it's going to cost me more money. You know what? And I hear what you're saying, and I understand what a lot of for sale by owners think that way. But again, if I could help you do it and get you the money you need in your pocket, even after my commissions and everything, would you at least talk to me about it? Well, yeah, I'd talk to you about it. Great. Then what I'd like to do is just set up a time to sit down and just take a look at what it would take to get your home sold, get you the most money in your pocket, and get you to San Diego sooner rather than later, even after my costs and everything. Wouldn't it be great? Great. So when would be a good time for us to get back together and go over that? Well, why don't we just sit down right now? Well, I'd love to, but what I need to do is some more homework on your property. Now that I've seen it, I want to do a full market study on it, and then be really prepared to sit down with you and show you the numbers to show you what it's going to how it's going to play out, and make sure that it's to your benefit to hire me. Does that make sense? Great. So I could come out, let's see, this is Wednesday afternoon. I could come out tomorrow afternoon around 5:30, or would Friday around 2:30 work better for you? Tomorrow at 5:30? Great. Then I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 5:30. Now, I just got the appointment. And I did it on a very fair trade. If I could help you net this, get the home sold, net the money you need in your pocket, even after commissions and everything, would you consider meeting with me? That's the approach. And when you use that approach, it's totally fair. I've clarified, by going to their house and meeting them, I've clarified their motivation. And literally, your time at their house will be shorter than the time of this training video. It's not going to take you that long to figure out their motivation, to talk to them, to understand what they want, and then ask them, hey, if I can help you get what you want in the time you want, get the money you need, would you consider interviewing me now and talk to me?